Good afternoon, welcome. This is Olga Tomanova in Media Center, Ukraine. And the second briefing is about the current status at our borders, at our checkpoints. And here we have with us Andrii Demchenko, spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. Andrii, hello. Hello. So let's start this discussion, obviously, with the territory close to the front line, close to the hostilities, and on the borders with Belarus. Are there any changes there? Our border guard service is present at the front lines which are at the border, because that's the new border, our front lines, and all through this full-fledged invasion time, we've been fighting everywhere. Not only Donetsk and Lugansk and in Kramatorsk, we still have our combat units there, and we can see that the enemy strives to move forward into our territory, but the brigades that were ultimately formed to be used in the active combat duty, they are countering the enemy quite well, using all the available weapons, including the artillery that our units currently have in our brigades, and obviously it's the further improvement of our UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles capabilities in Sumy region, in Luhansk border units. The use of those drones, UAVs, shows how important it is to have enough of those to help our boys on the front lines, demining, surveillance, reconnaissance, artillery corrections, and daily, of course, those drones help to destroy the enemy vehicles and kill enemy troops. But it's important to ensure that there would be clear synergy between the border guards units, National Guards, the armed forces of Ukraine, because we're all part of the same forces of defense. At the border with Russia, we daily observe shellings in Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv regions in particular. In September only, our border guard units have documented 3,500 plus shellings on those three regions, and mostly on Sumy region. And what the enemy is using is the artillery, of course, but lately they have been heavily using assault UAVs that are trying to hit the border regions of Ukraine and mostly the settlements. As always, the enemy is hitting the civilians, confirming the status of the country terrorist. And let me add that if we look at the status in the Sumy region, then we need to observe how many aircrafts they are using in Chernihiv also, but less so than in Sumy. What about the Belarus border? Has it changed lately? Fortunately, the situation at the border with Belarus stays unchanged. But let me reiterate, this area is treated still by us as danger until Belarus is under Russia's influence and in its dominion. So all we're going to be doing is having enough well-trained, combat-ready troops to be able to react timely to any changes in the environment. And to the extent the situation changes, that's what our intelligence department is all about, making sure that all the intelligence reserves have been used to allow us early warning about potential development of threats from Belarus. But in terms of the military troops of the Russian Federation at the territory of Belarus, they are inadequate. And even if we observe any, they're mostly logistics and support units. Last year, the units that Russia still kept at the ranges in Belarus, they've been gradually taken back to Russia. But let me repeat myself ever again. This is a strong and deceitful enemy that used Belarus to start the invasion of Ukraine. That's why we'll keep an eye on that direction as well. Well, what about the border situation with the EU and the checkpoints there? What about the passenger trans? And this week there were certain complications at the border with Poland, so what's happening there? The flow of passengers depends on the high-low seasonality. Summer vacations, there were lots of people crossing the border. But come fall, the number of crossings of the border dropped substantially. In August, 4+ million crossed the border, while in September, this number dropped by 1 million. So 3 million plus in both directions, in and out of Ukraine. 85% of those 3 million who cross the border are the citizens of Ukraine. But if in summertime we have seen that in June time more people go out of the country, and July, August, September more of the Ukrainians were coming back into Ukraine. So September is the 50-50 month. But like I said, the number of crossings dropped by 1/4, which obviously demonstrates in the reduction of the queues waiting at the checkpoints, because in summer months there were lots of cars and passengers waiting to cross the border. Now there are no substantial queues left there, but still the checkpoints operate depending on the reliability of the databases. Sometimes the databases of domestic or international authorities might happen. The latest happened with the Customs Service of Poland. Yeah, it lasted for a couple of hours, and the authorities made everything possible to relaunch this database operation. Luckily, it didn't last for long, and now everything is done, business as usual, in and out of the country. Like previously, about 50% of crossings happen at the border with Poland. So, like I said, half of people. Now let's talk about any infringements and violations of the border crossing rules and laws. We can see how the border guard service and other law enforcement agencies catch such violators. Any new techniques for draft dodgers? The topic of today is checkpoints, especially you asked about what happens at the border with the EU and Moldova. Well, that's where daily we face attempts of crossing illegally the border, but mostly with the use of some bogus or falsified documents. But as previously, most of what happens is outside of checkpoints at the green zones at the borders of Romania and Moldova. Mostly less attempts now have been documented with Slovak Republic, Hungary and Poland, even though we do document some attempts for illegal border crossings, but fewer than in Romania and Moldova directions. And starting from August and in September, early October now, we can see that the number of those attempts drops substantially, qualitatively speaking. Early freezes start, snow on the ground, rainy weather, so such dire weather conditions would cause the reduction of the attempts to illegally cross the border, but those who do, they should think twice whether it's worth doing. There are some lethal cases when people try, for instance, to swim across cold rivers, which causes lethal cases. What about the statistics? 40 plus people lost their lives while trying to cross the border, and most of them, of course, trying to swim across the river. People would drown because these are very treacherous currents in those small but fast-paced rivers. Couple of lethal cases up in the mountains where people would get lost, and on numerous occasions we saved those people's lives. Not all of them, but we would come across such exhausted, close to the death line people. Well, come November the 10th, there will be the changes in the rules for the foreigners to cross the border. So, what should we know about this? Well, in terms of the Ukrainian border, no changes in crossing the Ukrainian border. It's the EU that announced a couple of changes, and the Foreign Affairs Ministry did provide official statement on what those changes are, while there are no substantial changes in the rules for border crossing. At the same time, the neighboring countries of the members of the EU could collect biometrics data from the travelers in order to automate the process to make the crossing faster. Thank you for this discussion, colleagues. That was Andrii Demchenko, spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, and we keep working together, bringing our victory closer. Thank you, the Forces of Defense, and glory to Ukraine.